Good morning, everybody. How y'all doing? Little later start this morning because, Sunday. We've got a Formula One race here in a little bit, so I'm going to do that when I get done with this. But I thought today we were going to just talk, we're just going to talk about some fun stuff. Just kind of after the week of craziness, kind of just thinking about what drives me to play guitar, how I choose what guitars I want to buy, like that kind of stuff. And I think part of it comes down to me work guitar versus play guitar. So I'm sort of in a little different situation than maybe even a person who is somebody that gigs a lot. I used to play probably until about 5 years ago. I played twice a week, right? Like I was out gigging all the time. But about 5 years ago, things just started getting so busy here that I just didn't have time to do it. Hey, still kind of chasing him around because of this getting him fixed deal. Anyways, yeah. So, somebody who plays music for a living, they might have a work guitar versus a play guitar, but I'm in a bit of a unique situation where I have that many of you may or may not, probably not, have a situation where you work on guitar stuff. Like, I don't know how many of you actually manufacture guitar parts for a living, but I bet the number is kind of smaller than the amount of people that watch this stuff, right? So I've got a little unique situation where we make parts all the time, and there's a lot of work surrounding guitars, and there's a lot of work guitars, right? Plus the channel, which is a completely different department from the actual business. So we have a bunch of work guitars, and then we review guitars and, like that kind of stuff. But at the end of the day, like literally at the end of the day, not the metaphoric use of that word, at 5 p.m., 4 p.m., whatever time when we get done, usually 5, I choose a different guitar. I don't choose a work guitar. I choose something that I really, really, for different reasons. And we're going to get into that. And so it's a weird thing, right? And I think it's fun. It's what keeps it fun for me, is to always be playing for the right reasons, despite having the job too. Because, you've probably heard the whole thing, and I don't know what y'all do for a living, but if you do something that you love for a living, you can kind of kill that thing if you don't do it right. And so choosing to do it right is really, really important for me personally, like for my mental health and my, you know what I mean? So the guitars that we talk about all the time, and then I think what happens is, and I don't want to spend too much time on this because this isn't about what other people think as much as it is about what I think. But just to put this out there, I think a lot of people think, oh, that guy's a guitar snob because blah, 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 blah. But I think what you'll find is, as we talk about this, is that I have just different reasons for stuff, right? Like, comes down to those things where people on the internet can't believe two things at the same time, or they just glom onto one thing and just see that, and that's all they see, and they don't see the whole picture, right? So that's kind of the thing. So I'll just try to help you have the whole picture here. So let's talk about work guitars. So some guitars that we buy for work, some of them you don't actually see. Some of them you don't ever see on the channel. Sometimes I'll borrow guitars because I wanted to develop a project, right? I used to borrow guitars. I guess I buy them now because I can do it now, but back in the day, I couldn't afford to buy them, and so I would have to borrow guitars. Funny story, the flat 6 Telecaster pickups that we made in the beginning, that we still make now, that are our best-selling Telecaster pickups, we sell tons of them every week, were developed on a borrowed 2008 made in Mexico Telecaster from this guy that I knew that worked at a music store, and I borrowed it from because I didn't, back then I just didn't have all the guitars. So now we buy them, and we have them around, and we'll use them for a while, and then we'll get rid of them, um, once we've really developed a product, and then maybe I'll buy a different guitar that pickup fits, and we'll try it in that one, and like that kind of stuff. So you can have well-rounded development of your product, But I don't get really super attached to that stuff because I just don't sell. I don't keep it very often. Keep it long, very long. I do like it though. I never buy a guitar I don't like. That is one thing, and that goes through my entire life. I don't buy a gun I don't shoot. I don't buy a knife I don't use. I don't buy stuff I don't use. So even when I'm collecting things, like a watch, like if I have a watch collection or a pen collection or whatever, I still use all of it. Um, I use all of it, and I rotate it purposely. Like I don't accumulate stuff just to accumulate it. I rotate things purposely so that I use them because I love learning about the aspects of all the different stuff. Same thing with guitars. I have probably somewhere around 30, I think. And so at any one time, we'll have like 12 or so out. And so I'll rotate that so that it continues, so that we continue always learning about various stuff, even on the guitars that I've owned a long time, because, you'll learn something about a guitar and then you'll go back and play a guitar you used to own or that you used to play a lot, and it'll change your perspective on it. So you're constantly like rotating that stuff, which is really, really fun. Um, so, but on the work guitars, the other work guitars we buy are, for example, this ESP LTD thing that we just did a review on, and it was an excellent instrument. Man, what a good guitar! $399. I mean, uh, really good. The neck, the neck to me is the selling point on that thing. Absolutely the selling point. And to have a contoured body that, like all the milling and stuff on it at that price, I thought was pretty neat too, because it was PRS SE level of milling and like finish and stuff. It was really good. Anyway, so the reason we choose those guitars, now these guitars may be affected by what other people say. So if somebody says, hey, you should, like, I'll give you an example, the Yamaha Pacifica. I'm curious about that because you're curious about that. It's not a guitar I would probably, oh yeah, I want one, because I don't really need it. But I'm curious about it because y'all have talked about it so much. Now I'm curious about it. Now I need to know. So, or maybe the guitar makes an interesting claim. Maybe there's some sort of technology on it. Maybe there's something new and gimmicky, something I need to learn, something that would help other people make a better buying decision on this guitar. That's different than, do I want to own the guitar for 20 years? Probably, maybe not. I don't know. But at the point of buying it for work, it's for work. Like I don't really have a connection to it. I don't, I think that's one of the things where people say, oh, you're a snob, or even not about me, but just about anybody, is that if I'm sort of indifferent about something, it's because I'm not personally interested until I'm interested. So we may get a guitar here that doesn't really float my boat, blow my hair back. And then I get it and I go, oh, all right. Well, this LTD was a perfect example. I bought the cheapest one. I didn't realize it was a bolt-on neck, and then it was already on the way, and I'm like, I literally didn't look at the specs. I was like, $399, looks nice. Let's just do it. It's an inexpensive guitar. I bet it'll be good. Then I'm like, oh crap, it's a bolt-on neck. Dang it. And then I get it here and I'm like, oh, this is actually the winning thing, man. This is the reason this guitar wins, is because of this. So like that's the kind of fun stuff that you just explore and find out with quote unquote a work guitar, So we take it apart, we put it back together, we evaluate it, we tell you about it, we do all that kind of stuff. But I might not personally be connected to the instrument with any reason. Now, you may own that guitar and emotionally be completely invested in that instrument at any price point. So it might be a $300 guitar, it might be a $3,000 guitar, but you're personally invested in your guitar because it's yours. I bought the guitar for work. I'm not invested in that guitar. I have the money in it, but I don't have I haven't had it for 10 years. I'm not an ESP, or LTD guy. I don't have, you know what I mean? Like I'm not invested in that. And so I think a lot of people see that as, they might take that personally because I'm not as, I'm not connected with that guitar. Now, if I sat around and played it and I've become more connected to it because I've had it for a couple of weeks now or a week and a half or something, and I've been playing it a bunch and it's nice, but it's not, I'm not faking anything as far as like the indifference is by accident because I just don't, there's just lots of guitars, right? But I'm not faking interest in a guitar, for example, because people are going to say that now. I haven't seen it. I don't really care. I haven't seen it in comments or anything. But now they're going to, I'm sure, because this is the way the internet works. Well, now he's just buying a bunch of guitars for reviews. He doesn't actually really like them. Well, it's not really true. I wouldn't spend my own money on stuff if I wasn't interested. I'm interested. Am I fully connected with this guitar? No. But I want to know. I want to know. I am a curious person and I want to know. So, that's what's really fun about reviewing guitars and working on guitars all the time. But it's tough for people to, like, I don't know, identify with. And I get why, because you don't do this for a living. It's a weird. I always tell people, because when people ask me what I do for a living, I don't really get into the conversation. I just tell people that I make guitar parts. And they go, "Oh, okay," and I just let it go because I don't tell people about YouTube because that turns into a whole thing because it's never what people think it is because I don't make lots of money at it or anything, and it gets all weird. And I don't tell people specifically unless they're very interested what I make because it's hard to explain to somebody. Like I never get into what I do for a living. Like what do you do for a living? I make guitar parts. Oh, that's cool. You can make a living at that? Yeah. Yeah, it's pretty good. My wife does some stuff. My daughter works for me full time. It's a family business, it's not that big. It's just a family business. But yeah, it's cool. It's fun. And that's it. Because I don't really get into all of that. And another thing that people need to think about too is that a positive review doesn't mean that I want that guitar and I'm going to keep it forever. It's just a good guitar, right? We get this a lot. You said that guitar was good, but then you sold it in a week. Well, that was the purpose. I had to sell the guitar. I can't keep them all. I don't like to keep them all. To be honest with you, I've got a guitar here from Guitar Center right now that I'm about to review. It's going back because I don't own it. They just loan them to me. And some people would say, well, a lot of guitar reviewers would be like, well, you're not really getting paid if you have to send the guitar back. And I'm like, but that's not why I do it. Like, I wanted to know about this guitar, so I borrowed it. And now I'm going to send it back because I don't need them piling up around here. And I don't want them. I don't want a million guitars for the sake of having a million guitars. And you know what I mean? Like, it's kind of funny, like, because I've had other people ask me that. They're like, well, then you're not really getting paid. And I'm like, well, yeah, then I'm not really getting paid. I have to give it back. And, which is fine. I'm totally cool with that because I don't care to have them all stacking up around here. I don't know. I just don't. It's just not my thing. The other thing that people should realize is that my personal collection. So let's talk about my personal collection now. Is not a buyer's guide. And I think people don't see that, don't get that, don't understand that, or choose to not understand that. I think there's some willful ignorance there. Well, you have a custom shop guitar, so you're a snob. Okay. Sure. If you want to think that, that's fine. what I do in my personal life is not a recommendation, and what you do in your personal life is usually not a recommendation either, right? It's a personal thing. Now, the reason I share that stuff is because I have a guitar channel, and also because I'm super excited because I genuinely like what I like. Um, and I think the other thing that happens is because I like what I like doesn't mean I don't like other stuff. Just because you can't like two things at the same time doesn't mean I can't like two things at the same time. So I can like a $4,000 guitar and a $400 guitar just fine. I'm totally happy doing that, and I genuinely do. But some people, because of how they see the world, or I don't know if it's an eat the rich thing, or if it's a political stance, or if it's a where how they were raised, or whatever, um, can't see both things. I was raised really, really poor, really poor. Now we had a guitar store when I was a kid, and so I was exposed to a bunch of stuff, but I didn't have a bunch of stuff, and I didn't have expensive stuff. Um, I had an old PV Studio Pro 40, like a PV Bandit. I actually bought another one so that I could have my original rig. Um, terrible amp, terrible amp. I had Ibanez Sound Tank pedals. For those of you that remember, I had one. Actually, I had two. I apologize. I had two. I had the green one, which was supposed to like the Ibanez knockoff of its own knockoff of the Tube Screamer, and I had a chorus pedal because I liked Robin Trower back then. And I played into a solid state PV 40-watt amp with an old Japanese Stratocaster, which at that time was just an old cheap guitar. It was not kind of sought after. And the old Japanese stuff is sought after now, but it wasn't then. It was just an old cheap guitar. And that's all I had. That was it. My first acoustic guitar was a Stella. It was garbage. It was garbage. I couldn't afford anything. I worked all summer to buy my first mountain bike for $280, which was really expensive back then. But I worked all summer digging a ditch around a guy's house while living in a mobile home, right? I think I was 14, something like that. So, I know what it's like to be broke. And so people think that you can't identify with, enjoying inexpensive stuff and expensive stuff. Well, I've worked my whole life to build this program that I have here that keeps my entire family afloat. And now that I like a nice guitar, I can like all of it. That's the fun part. That's the fun part. So my collection is not a recommendation. The reason I collect, I'm not an excellent guitar player. And this is something that people don't understand either, because we all play for different reasons, right? So I got into guitar playing because I really enjoy music. And my dad was a guitar player. He is a guitar player. He's really good. He played professionally all my life until I was a little older, and he encouraged me not to gig all the time. He encouraged me not to be a professional musician. And so at a very young age, my practice every day turned into learning the technical side of how music is made. So there's a little inside baseball, a little behind the scenes for me personally. When I was a kid, I was encouraged to not. My dad was like, "You're going to end up dead in the back of a van somewhere with a needle in your arm or something like that," because that was the era of everybody that happening to everybody. And so he's like, "Don't do that." You know what I mean? And he's like, "So put your effort. Obviously, you love music. Keep playing guitar." He's like, "But put your effort into learning." He encouraged me and actually paid for an electronics school for me and all this kind of stuff. Well, he paid for half of it. And said, learn how it's made, like learn the music, learn how the music is made. So I sat behind a desk a lot, like a sound desk, produced a bunch of music with him, produced records with him, mic'd guitars, worked in a studio, worked in video, produced. My dad has an Emmy for like some documentaries that he made with PBS. Like, so go out on those shoots, work on all that stuff, shoot documentaries, learn all about sound production. And so when I tell you I'm better at making you sound good than I am at making me sound good, that's because I've redirected my energy from being an amazing guitar player by choice to learning how it works and how things sound. And so I can hear everything. I can't play everything, but I can hear everything. So if you know, for those people that are like, you could play these two pickups back to back and you can't tell the difference. Well, I can. I can, because I've been training my brain to do this for my entire life. Just like you might be able to do it with wine, and I can't do that, for example. Same thing, right? You just train your taste buds, you know, and I've kind of done that with music. And so, and being alive during a time period when the instruments that were accessible and are much less accessible now were very interesting instruments to me. So like the 59 Les Paul, for example, Junior, my dad, I remember my dad having them. Like, they were around. We had them. Like, we just had them. Well, now that's not so possible. And that's a kind of a nostalgic thing for me. I really care about it, and I love that guitar. And so that's why I bought that custom shop one, because it was the best way to get a good one at that time. It's not the best value. It's not the best, you know, whatever. But now I'm sort of in a mode of, and this is the way I feel about all my collecting stuff, my guns, my knives, my pens, my everything is, it's sort of a museum, right? And if people don't like that, you know, well, you're just a collector. Okay, sure. I think it's important for people to have this stuff as a reference. And when we put a carbon fiber guitar or a custom shop guitar or an old Strat or a Tele or whatever in a video, I think it's important for me, for what I do for a living, for my personal fun because of my history, and because of the ability to share it with you. Not show it off, that's two different things, but to actually share it with you. Because if you were here, I would let you play anything you wanted. You could let your kids hold it. Like, I'm not precious with my stuff. I've never been that, except for my car. If you scratch my car or draw on my windows, you will never come to my house again. That's the only thing. But everything else, I don't really care. You know, I don't really care. You can come over and, you know, if the Les Paul gets a scratch in it because your kid, you know, whatever, I don't care. Like, I'm not precious with my stuff. I want you to enjoy it. And I think that's really an important distinction to make from the guitar snob, guitar collector, to the person who is like, no, let's see this stuff. We need to experience it, and we need to have one around so that we can all share it together. And I really am genuine about that. That's something I really care about. On the other side of it, I really like it. But I really genuinely like them all. Everything we have here, I like. You know, I like it. Otherwise, I wouldn't get it. And I think sometimes, because viewers are pressured to like justify their own instruments, maybe because their wife didn't want them to buy it, or because they're in a community of guitar players who's constantly like the whole just as good as thing, or punches above its weight, or I could have gotten something better. They're uncertain about their purchase, or, you know, lack of self-esteem in regards to their guitar playing. You know, does the internet approve of this brand? That's a big one. But I don't need to defend myself with any of that, because they're mine and I like them. And I don't think you should either. That's one of the things you're going to see change on all the channels is I don't want to give you any reason to have to defend your guitar, because you shouldn't have to. You like your guitar, no matter how much it costs or how little it costs or what it is. if you like your guitar, you should have no reason to defend it. And I don't want you to feel like you have to defend it to me. I don't want that. So if you like have a guitar that I don't like, don't defend it to me. Just tell me why you like it. I want to know. I genuinely want to know why you like it. And I think that is an important thing, to have these conversations about why we like stuff. I always say, after I'm gone, I want to be known for what I liked and what I didn't, not what I didn't like. You know, if and my friends will know. Some dork on the internet, and I mean that, some dork on the internet is going to be, after he's gone, he's that guy that hated Harley Benton's. Okay. But my friends are going to be like, I don't know what they're going to say about me, but they're not going to say that. They're not going to say that. I know what they're going to say. I don't know what they're going to say about me, and I don't really care, to be honest with you. But they're not going to say that. I'm going to be known for the things that I loved. Mostly my family and my dog. So yeah, it's interesting. It's interesting. So if it sounds like I don't really want to keep a review guitar, I probably don't. And what I collect and why I collect it for personal reasons is different than owning it because it's on YouTube. You know, work versus play. I think we all need to play enough. You know, we all need to play.